Good afternoon, welcome to Talk on the Block. It's a Wednesday. Getting more interesting by the minute. Yesterday we heard that the government of Dominica was given deadline as a legal action looms on the West Bridge. Demand letter was given last Friday, May 20, and was addressed to the Prime Minister as well as the Minister of Public Works, the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Public Works, and the Attorney General, Chief Procurement Officer, and the Chairman of the Procurement Board. We heard the president of the Builders and Contractors Association saying yesterday that they're taking this matter seriously. Furthermore, he stated that procurement is something significant for every Dominican business. That is where they get a chance to grow, and if the market is not opened and is not available to the local community, then we might as well fall down and die. As long as we are alive, we are not prepared to fall before we die. The GCCCS consists of the Dominica Association of Professional Engineers, the Dominica Society of Architects, and the BCAD. The contract for the West Bridge project was signed on Wednesday, April 13, 2013. An interesting twist today. After the news broke of the letter, today we're hearing that the Public Procurement and Contract Administration Act Number 11 of 2012 is on course to be repealed and replaced. Chief Procurement Officer within the Central Procurement Unit in the Ministry of Finance, Oscar Siman, confirmed that the information in a panel discussion about the status of the country's Procurement Act on the Government Information Service recently. He says this decision follows a review of the Act by the Public Procurement Consultant Patrish F. Pratt. Seaman says the plan is for the new Act to be in effect before the end of 2016. Interesting twist there, huh?
We got a consultant to do the review, and based on her findings, she find a difficulty in advising the government of Dominica to move ahead with the legislation in its present form. It would cause the government to go into litigation, and this is one of the things that we didn't want to do. Based on experiences within the Caribbean, especially within the OECS, some member states within the OECS had experienced, the consultant felt that she would not give us the advice to go ahead with this. As a result of this, she gave us a way forward, as I mentioned in an inception report. The way forward was to do a new draft legislation, to do a new draft regulation, to do a new procedures manual, and associated standard meeting documents. As we speak right now, the final draft bill, procurement bill, is presently being reviewed by the Chief Parliamentary Counsel of the Attorney General's Office, and also the regulations is also being reviewed, because what we do not want to do is we do not want to lose the substance, the procurement substance of the bill. We want to maintain the procurement substance while tweaking the bill to suit our drafting style. One of the things is, going back to the present legislation, we saw the weaknesses and the shortfalls and the inconsistencies that are in the law. And one of the things that we have done is to address them and to make it a little better, because if we have to follow this to the letter, a lot of our local suppliers will be shut up. What we want to do is we want to create an environment where they can build capacity, they can build, themselves in terms of experience, capacity, so that moving forward they are able to bid on projects, not only in Dominica, because we must not look at this thing as only for, when you build yourself, it's only for Dominica. It's not only for Dominica. It is also for the wider Caribbean.
So, Mr. Seaman, couldn't you have said that to the government of Dominica? You are the chief procurement officer, before they find themselves in hot water. How long ago you said that? This is surfacing some information coming from the GIS. Didn't you know that before? Hello, talk to me. Yes.
And the listening public. You see the blatant and obvious defiance and disregard for law and constitution continues. From the time I heard it on the 1 o'clock news, I said, hey, the laws of coincidence are not consistent, Matt. Where there is a consistent sequence of events, coincidence is absent, Matt. Matt, Dominicans talking about they're ready. What ready? Matt, it is obvious. Coming events cast the shadows before them, and the events are upon us, and we are looking for shadows, preoccupied, looking for shadows. Matt, this is a desperate, diabolic, and demonic, drowning creature that are clutching or grabbing at the souls of the people, the blood of the people, the independence of the people. And we are sitting there like we're zombies. Maybe we really are, waiting for prayers to take effect. And I'm not discrediting prayers. The power of prayers, it's mysterious, man. But I am saying, my brother, what will it take to awaken a people that seems to be fast asleep in a slumber of fear, intimidation? Fear and intimidation, Matt. That's what it is. So how ready are we? What will it take, Matt, to break that diabolic camel back? My brother, have a blessed day. I pray, Matt, action speaks louder than words. Have a blessed day, bro.
Good. We've been joined by the opposition leader this afternoon. Alex, it seems like an interesting twist there. This whole news of, the procurement bill being repealed or being taken off the books. What do you make of this new news, or if you want, old news being recycled?
Matt, good afternoon to you. Good afternoon to the people of Dominica, the people of Marigot, people of Salisbury, people of Soufriere and Scott's Head and Galion and Point Michel. By the way, Matt, we're having a public meeting in Galion this evening from 6 o'clock. I want to invite all the people of Galion to join us. We'll have a nice interaction and engagement there from 6 o'clock this afternoon. All the issues, all the questions you have, all the concerns about where your country is headed and what can happen for your constituency, or your part of the constituency at least, in this upcoming by-election. What are the issues? And that will be from 6 o'clock. So, Matt, I know you don't go to Galia very often, but it's a good opportunity for you to join us there. I know there's some folks from Sufria who are going to be coming up to join us, and some folks from Scottsdale as well. It will be a wonderful engagement in Galia this evening from 6 o'clock. So, Matt, again, an invitation for you and the folks around Dominica to join us in this lovely community. The Public Procurement Act and Contract Administration Act, as an initiative of the Dominica Labour Party, has its genesis in the failed 2008 attempt to steal over $500,000 from the Treasury of Dominica in what we have since described as the garbage bin bubble. It was when the Prime Minister came to the nation that he told the people of Dominica, in an attempt to save face, he told the people of Dominica they'll be pursuing legislation to ensure that something like that never happened again. That was 2009, 7 years ago. We have had numerous consultations with stakeholders, especially in the private sector. I remember the Dominica Association of Industry and Commerce being very involved in putting forward proposals for this Public Procurement and Contract Administration Act. The act went to Parliament. It passed. Then in January of last year, 2015, it became operational by operation of law. Okay? By operation of law, the act became operational in January of 2015. We've come now to May, the end of May 2016. That is 1 year and 5 months later. And in circumstances where the requirements of the act are not being followed, where provisions of the act are being openly breached by Roosevelt Skerrit and his government so that they can award contracts to their friends, especially this $18.2 million contract to the Barbadian company that participated in the election campaign of Roosevelt Skerrit, which has been challenged, and rightly so, by the Joint Consultative Committee on the Construction Sector. And court action has been threatened, and Mr. Skerrit has until 4 o'clock this afternoon to respond to the protocol letter before commencement of legal action. All of a sudden, we're hearing of the intention to repeal and replace the act. I only want to say to public officers, be careful about the extent to which you involve yourself in the propaganda campaigns of political parties, because that is what this is. It is nothing more, it is nothing less. This consultant's work is 2015. In 2015, we had emergency attention paid to pieces of legislation, for example, the Banking Act and the Integrity in Public Office Act. They came to Parliament in record time with limited notice for debate and for passage. And you had this important piece of legislation sitting on the books, operational since January of 2015. Mr. Skerrit choosing to engage only the emergency provisions so he can hand contracts, award contracts without bidding, without tender to his friends. And now when he's in hot water, all of a sudden, a public officer decides to come into the mix to try to confuse the people and say, oh, well, we're going to repeal and replace the act. In other words, Mr. Skerrit is right to disobey the law. He's right to flout the law because that particular law is about to be repealed and replaced. And I don't think you get more dangerously disingenuous than that. And I want to warn public officers, Matt. Stop involving yourselves in the propaganda campaigns of the city, of the ruling party. That's not why you serve the people of Dominica. You serve the people of Dominica to be truthful, to be honest, and to be responsible in your representations of the public interest. The public interest right now is in holding Roosevelt Skerrit to account for the illegal, the unlawful award of an $18.2 million contract to his friends and participants in his election campaign from 2014 from Barbados, the illegal award of that contract, and the fact that he now has to do what is right and is being forced to do what is right by a civil society organization, namely the Joint Consultative Committee on the Construction Sector. I take my hat off to them this afternoon, because it is time that we in Dominica understand we must stand up to be counted against what is wrong and for what is right. We have had enough of this indecent, corrupt behavior of Roosevelt Skerrit and his gang in government, and it is time to bring an end to it. And in a way, you know, Matt, the election campaign that we're in right now for the by-election, a lot of these issues are coming up and center. We're wasting money awarding contracts to our friends. And you remember Jerry Brisbane? Good afternoon, Jerry. Jerry Brisbane did some very important work on this station where he was reviewing what was happening with the award of contracts to do public works in Dominica. And he was able to show, as I recall, that we were being cheated out of 25 to 30% of the intrinsic value of these contracts by not bidding, by not ensuring competitive bidding, by not tendering. Contracts were being inflated, right? And when he spoke about value for money and asked the EU to look for value for money in what was being done with their money in Dominica, there was a call by the now president of Dominica for boycott on his operations. Brizimat has since closed down. But the problem remains. The problem of inflating contracts, awarding them illegally without public tender and bidding remains with us. And we're the ones who have been cheated. The public of Dominica are the ones who have been cheated. So that the people in Galion, for example, who we'll be speaking to this afternoon, must understand monies that are supposed to be available for their development, monies that are supposed to be available to build infrastructure, to build up their means of livelihood, to build up the social services, are being cheated away from the people of Dominica by a select group of corrupt politicians through all these schemes they have with procurement and so on. And we need to bring that up front and center, alongside all of the money that is hiding in foreign bank accounts, alongside all of the lack of disclosure, of the lack of transparency in handling and accounting for the citizenship by investment revenues. We hear now that Sam Raphael is going to build at Monakuma, and we welcome that. Remember Sam Raphael, remember who he is, Sam Raphael is responsible for the best success story of economic citizenship in the hotel sector that we have in Dominica, in Jungle Bay. At the same time that Sam Raphael is again announcing that he will set up at Monakuma in the Soufriere area. We have had for 2 years now a promise that at the Cabrits in Portsmouth, in the national park there, the Range Development will be building a Kempinski brand hotel. I find that to be most interesting because remember, you can compare Sam Raphael and Jungle Bay with Greystone, Pinardburn and Company and Lai River. Hundreds of millions of dollars collected, spent, no hotel. Sam gets a couple $1 million from the citizenship program, the re-engineered citizen program of the United Workers' Party, and completes his hotel, operates it, employs people, earns foreign exchange, attracts attention to Dominica, which is what we want from an initiative like that. In the case of the Kempinski Hotel, for more than 2 years, you've had a memorandum of understanding signed under which $220,000 US per investor is being collected, up to a maximum of 800 investors. Suppose they have maxed out, and I suspect they already have in the region of 176 million US dollars, which is close to $500 million EC dollars. The hotel, we understand, the 161 room Kempinski, is going to cost no more than 60 million US dollars. Do the math, Matt Peltier. But also, ask the question, why can't the hotel start? Where is the opportunity for local contractors to go to work on this hotel? We're hearing of the appointment of NH International. The same NH International that left us with $7.5 million of fraudulent concrete in the Layo River project that were never sued. Because according to Pinardburn, they were contract barred from suing a company that gave them $7.5 million of fraudulent concrete. And so the story of the Layo River remains for us to understand, internalize, and ask ourselves, whose fools are we? So 2 years, we collected money under the Kempinski. Over a year now, the government has gone to Parliament. Remember, they have a problem going to Parliament with the Procurement Act. But they have gone to Parliament since February of last year, more than a year ago, to hive off 15 acres of the national park against the land use plan of their own government. The government's land use plan was violated by this decision to go to Parliament to hive off 15 acres of land for the Kempinski. So the Kempinski people, Range Development, they have the land in the national park now for over a year. They've been collecting money for more than 2 years. The hotel cannot start. Matt, come to Galia. I see Afi Mate is here. I want Afi to come to Galia. I like to invite Afi to things. You know why? Unlike you. Afi turns up, he shows up. I saw Afi. I saw him, man. I saw. But I saw you. I remember I saw you on Saturday, man. I saw you on Saturday. My apologies, man. I saw you. So I guess I'll see you tonight at 5:30 in Galio. God bless you, my brother.
Thank you. Let's take another phone call. Hello.
Matt, good afternoon to you.
Yes.
And good afternoon, Honorable Lennox Linton and Afi Matthew.
Mm-hmm.
Look, prostitution of our country. Yes, sir. Mr. Scarlett is supposed to be the servant of the people, Matt. They're supposed to be the servant of the people. They're supposed to be open and transparent with the people of Dominica. They're just doing things and they want to go to the parliament to prevent Dominicans from speaking. What nation are we, Matt? What has happened to Dominica? Where are the institutions, where are the organizations, where are the unions, where are the different women's groups, where are all the different organizations who stood up against Patrick John in the 1970s? Where are these people today? My God, our children will never have a future under this administration. And if we don't stand up and put a stop to it now, tomorrow we'll not be able to open our doors. Thank you and good afternoon.
One of the things is, going back to the present legislation, we saw the weaknesses and the shortfalls and the inconsistencies that are in the law. And one of the things that we have done is to address them and to make it a little better. Because if we have to follow this to the letter, a lot of our local suppliers will be shut up. What we want to do is we want to create an environment where they can build capacity, they can build, themselves in terms of experience, capacity, so that moving forward, they are able to bid on projects, not only in Dominica, because we must not look at this thing as only for, when you build yourself, it's only for Dominica. It's not only for Dominica. It is also for the wider Caribbean. We got a consultant to do the review, and based on her findings, she find a difficulty in advising the government of Dominica to move ahead with the legislation in its present form. It would cause the government to go into litigation, and this is one of the things that we didn't want to do. Based on experiences within the Caribbean, especially within the OECS, some member states within the OECS had experienced. The consultant felt that she would not give us the advice to go ahead with this. As a result of this, she gave us a way forward, as I mentioned in an inception report. The way forward was to do a new draft legislation, to do a new draft regulation, to do a new procedures manual, and associated standard meeting documents. As we speak right now, the final draft bill, procurement bill, is presently being reviewed by the Chief Parliamentary Counsel of the Attorney General's office, and also the regulations is also being reviewed, because what we do not want to do is we do not want to lose the substance, the procurement substance of the bill. We want to maintain the procurement substance while tweaking the bill to suit our drafting style.
Hello. I've been searching for this man for about 24 hours. I finally found him. The president of the Builders and Contractors Association of Dominica, Mr. Anthony LeBlanc. Mr. LeBlanc, I know you're one of the persons who are making a lot of noises about this procurement bill. Have you heard anything about this act being repealed anytime recently?
Yes, Matt. The first official information we had was a budget meeting with the Prime Minister in 2015. I think it was the 21st May or thereabout in 2015. At that meeting, I remember posing that question to the Prime Minister about the status of the procurement bill. And the response was that the act is being reviewed with the intention to either amend or repeal and replace, because there were issues with the Procurement Act, according to a report they received from a consultant who was engaged to draw up regulations and the other machinery for the implementation of the Act. That was in 2015, and that was a couple months after the Act came into force. Yes, there have been tardiness on the part of the government in the implementation and even drawing up of the Act. This thing should have been discovered long before that, given that there were 2 years set out for the regulations or any issues with the Act. In addition, we had brought up to the government several areas that we felt were issues with the Act even before it was passed. A lot of them were not taken on board. And I remember asking the Prime Minister at that point whether we could get a copy of the report from the consultant that details the areas that he or she had with the Act. We didn't receive that. I remember the Prime Minister promising that he would have the draft Act by the end of June, and that by July we should be able to get some information on that. As yet, we have received no indication of what the issues are with the Act.
Even as we speak?
Even as we speak. Recently, I requested it again, and it was promised to me by email. I haven't received it yet. So our difficulty is not with needing to amend or repeal the Act and replace it with a better one. Our difficulty is the lack of consultation with the private sector. Totally ignoring the fact that the private sector are the ones who are actually going to be purchasing from the government, whether it's local or foreign private sector. The government purchases from itself, different departments to a limited extent, but the bulk of purchasing by the government, the bulk of procurement, is with the private sector. And the lack of disclosure, the lack of consultation in the private sector is what concerns us. And we have been asking for consultation pretty much since 2010 about procurement legislation, and for the various bill stage, we have been seeking and trying to be involved in the consultations so that any act, there will be a smooth transition into it.
When was the Procurement Act passed?
It was passed in 2012, December, I believe, assented to in January 2013.
You have a few hours. You spoke about a deadline today for the Prime Minister and the Ministry of Finance to respond to a pre-action protocol letter addressed to him concerning the contract of the West Bridge project, Roseau, today. Have you heard anything yet, sir?
I could tell you that my information from my legal team is that the government side have asked for more time, and we have no objection to giving them more time to respond.
They want more time to respond. I also heard word that, this may have been political on your part. Are you part of any political organization, sir?
Matt, I think we should keep the discussion at a Matthew level.
Because I did see a note from you on the DNO saying that it's appalling that the Prime Minister cannot indicate what his intelligence is because we wrote him. It's amazing. I'm quoting you here, that he can turn it into a political thing. It has nothing to do with politics. That was you.
Matt, the letter was issued to the Prime Minister. I have information showing that the letter was received by the Prime Minister's office at about 4:05 on the 20th, Friday the 20th of May. That's all I will say about that. I mean, there's no doubt where he had the information from. It was directly addressed to him. His office received it on Friday. He makes a statement after Friday about his intelligence. I don't have a problem with his intelligence. He should just be frank about who is challenging this project.
Why are you taking this so seriously, or why is this serious for you?
Matt, at the risk of repeating myself, we have said already that procurement is a serious matter in Dominica. It boils down to how much tax you have to pay for each procurement dollar. I mean, as long as the government is not efficient about its purchasing, whether it's works contract, whether it is a vehicle, whatever it is, as long as the government is not efficient, financial management is an issue, and the people of Dominica will pay more tax. In addition, procurement is public procurement is an avenue for growth for a lot of businesses. That's when legitimate businesses can seek to engage the government in its needs to purchase, and do it in a very transparent way, and may the best man win. And it is a room for growth. And if we are not given the opportunity locally to tender for jobs in a transparent manner, how do we grow with that experience to go to tender in St. Lucia or Trinidad or Martinique or Germany or the United States? Unless we have learned how to do it well, and the nitty-gritty is about doing it well, we'll never be able to compete externally. And that, I think, should be a concern for our government, to make sure that our Dominican private sector is mature enough to go out and compete in a clear, transparent way with anybody, anywhere around the world.
How far are you prepared to take this? Because a lot of your critics have said, well, you know, your organization have actually, quote unquote, stopped a major $18 million project. We are seeing signs come down. How do you respond to this?
Matt, it's a legal issue. It's an issue where, as we said before, we felt that the act or the laws which is enforceable in Dominica has been ignored, and we feel that our members in the construction sector have been injured from that perspective, and it's our responsibility as leaders in the organization that have elected us to represent their interests, to take that issue to the level where there is a level playing field for members in the local construction sector, and take it to the point where we do not pay more tax than we need to pay, or, as we have said before, accept one more person as a citizen in order that we pay for infrastructure.
All right, Mr. Tony LeBlanc, I'll be joining you again sometime. Thank you very much for joining us on the Talk on the Block. Thank you. Athy, any comments at this time? You've heard Mr. LeBlanc. Lennox is still in the house.
Well, no, but let me put this. I want to leave, but I want to leave something with Athy.
Right.
And that is that this initiative was born somewhere in 2009. There's a lot of consultation. Then the act is passed in December of 2012. It is assented to in January of 2013 and becomes operational in January of 2015. I want Athy to pay attention to that timeline and the lapse of time between significant events in the evolution of this piece of legislation on the issue of competence in government and the issue of sincerity of purpose, and having regard now to the fact that the act is being ignored. The law of the land is being violated, and people are saying, well, almost suggesting, well, we can repeal it, we can violate it because we're going to repeal it. That's the new thing I'm hearing now. I think that makes sense to you.
Well, Matt, I just, as I was driving down to town, is when I first heard of this. I heard Lennox on the radio, and I heard the news and so on. And I'm just now reading this press statement that I find in your studio, and there's a very fascinating sentence here, which probably reveals the diabolical, nature of things in Dominica today. I quote, referring to the consultant, the press statement says, she sent us, meaning the government, an emergency memo saying that we should convene an emergency sitting of Parliament to have this act repealed because, and this is the important part, there are certain provisions in the act that could cause injury to the state. I stop there, and I start there because it seems to me that we have to be very careful when we use such words as the state, because the state includes public sector, private sector, civil society, and the whole range of persons and groups in any community that actually make up the whole state. But it seems to me we may be interpreting the word state, which is actually interestingly capitalized in this particular press statement, to mean just the public sector, or i.e., as we would like to say locally, the government, as opposed to private sector. So is it that we are seeing yet again an attempt, and this again led by, as Lennox pointed out, a public servant, supposedly serving the people of the state, to actually seek to protect that portion of the state, which is the public policy-making segment of the state, at the expense of, as Tony LeBlanc was just saying, the private sector, or civil society, or the people who actually make up the most important and crucial segment of the state.
But I think on another matter, address this, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
The work of the consultant is more than a year old.
Yeah.
So the consultant is pointing out that certain provisions of the act could be injurious to the state.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that sound reason enough for a government to engage the consultant to get with the program and act speedily?
Absolutely.
In order to resolve these issues?
Yes.
Instead, the government is using the act, but the government is using the act in a way that allows it to do what it wants to do. So the act to be repealed is being used by the government.
Mm-hmm.
Make no mistake about it.
Mm-hmm.
And what would be interesting in finding out is whether the provisions that say, thou shalt tender, thou shalt enter into competitive bidding on these contracts,
mm-hmm.
is one of the provisions that's doing injury to the state.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Because that's what they don't want to do.
They don't want. And you heard Mr. LeBlanc make that point. He's been asking for, and who could more legitimately want to see that act
mm-hmm.
than the people who are going to be providing the services to be procured by the state sector on projects like the bridge and so forth. So, but
because in fact they were extensively consulted, I understand.
Mm-hmm.
They had input
yes.
into the process that arrived at the legislation.
But they need to review what is the draft, the penultimate draft. They need to review the document to make sure that, in fact, in the final analysis, their issues and concerns are adequately reflected. But also, it doesn't surprise me. It's just a long pattern. I have a long list here of legislative initiatives that could have and should have been taken over the last 10 years and were not.
Somebody's asking there, just quite aside, but kind of linked. Will we hear soon that the Sexual Offences Act may be repealed, Joe? Yes, other side.
Well, we were told, interestingly, that it has been that act has been told to take a number and get online. because they said that it might be addressed by the end of this year. Not so the Asset Management Bill, not so the National Environmental Strategy and Action Plan, not so the Act to deal with sustainable land management, not so, if you will, the Legal and Emergency Powers Act, the Early Warning System Act, the Emergency Shelters Act, and so forth. There's a whole list of legislation that is at various stages of preparation, which is crucial to the welfare of the state writ large, including, as we enter the next hurricane season and the storm season, legislation that deals directly with protecting land and life.
But go back, I think, to this term here, injury to the state.
Injury to the state.
Injury to the state means overcharging the state's government for public works.
Well, if you want examples of injury to the state...
that is clear injury. You agree that is injury to the state?
Yeah, absolutely.
If the state should pay 10 million, but you found a way to charge the state 15 million, that is injury.
Right.
That is clearly injury.
Right.
And when contracts are being inflated left, right, and center, so you have to spend more passport money, you have to spend more taxes. That's injury to the state.
Here's another example, Lennox. Dilma Rousseff, former president of Brazil, was removed from office.
There you go.
For causing injury to the state of Brazil. You know what her injury to the state was? She failed to report on the performance of the Brazilian economy. Reggie Austri has failed to report on the status of the Petrocaribe account, and the Minister of Finance has failed to report thereby properly on the state of the national debt. In Brazil, they would have both been removed from office by force of the people. In Dominica, they have not been removed yet.
Phone call there. Hello.
Hey, Mr. Pelt, it's me again.
Yes.
Quickly, Matt, look at that, you know. The same thing Afi made a few references having to do with all the bills that are just sitting. There is no urgency.
Blessings, hold on quickly there.
Good afternoon to you, sir.
Hey, blessings, King. What's up?
God bless you.
All right, thanks. And it is not convenient. It is not accommodating or facilitating for them to hasten those other bills that are just sitting, having to do with the Child Sexual Act, I think it is, and many other things. But that one is very interesting. I talk about it's no coincidence, because look at having to do with the Builders and Contractors Association, whatever the names are, Matt. Look at right there, they come with a letter from the lawyers and bam, 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 asking him to respond. They need more time for what? The brothers must be careful. What amount of time they need to have to go and repeal the act like they did with the IPO and many other things while matters are pending in the court. They go to the parliament or to wherever and they repeal, they make amendments to and nullify whatever that was in progress. So, Matt, I am saying, Roosevelt scared as like a man, a house is not yours, but you have a chainsaw and a power saw. If it's concrete, you have a sledgehammer. As long as the keys is the legal way to get out through the doors or the window. You find it's the legal way. I'm going to use my sledgehammer or my chainsaw. Matt, in time to come, you will not have a house because it will cut exit points or exit points and exit points until you haven't got a house. You not about a door, you know you will not have. You will not have a house. So he's just cutting his way out of a house. Dominica is the house, my brother. How can we allow a man to just violate and disrespect and just, come on, something has to be done, something more drastic. Thanks.
Thank you. Somebody's saying, Matt, it's obvious that the PM is using stalling tactics. Yeah. So why is the Builders Association extending the time to respond, allowing him to wriggle his way out? Let's take it to the phone call. Hello. Caller? Oh, I don't know what happened, caller. A call on the overseas line, but we have missed you there. Do you think that he's trying to get some way of wriggling out, Athy? Is that what you think?
That is his standard operating procedure, and I'm not surprised again. I mean, by that, you know. But what is happening is that his procedure for saving his skin is becoming more transparent, and the skin is wearing thin, and that brings me to we have to parallel all of these things with what then? A question. What then are the national priorities of the government in Dominica today? What does it consider critically important? 1, 2, 3. Are children and the safety of children in that number 1, 2, 3?
The government has answered no.
Well, we come into the government's answer. This is the question. You know, is the creation of jobs and the stimulation of industry a critically important thing for the state? When in fact, even in their own development plans approved by themselves, they say growth is the only way to solve the problem of poverty.
Mm-hmm.
So how does a people sit by and watch a government just flit like a butterfly from one flower to the next without standing, without stopping to even try to figure out, so to even allow you to admire the beauty of that butterfly? So it seems to me that this government has run out of options. They are scared. Their back is against the wall. They are attempting to make it look like the people's backs are against the wall, but it is the government's back that is against the wall. I really do believe that the only honorable course of action open to a government whose back is against the wall, which means they've run out of ideas, it is patently clear they don't know how to deal with the basic needs of the country. The only way they know how to deal with basic needs is to give handouts, to hand people money, hand people things, man. And that, as we all know, you know, teach a man a fish, teach a man to fish, or give a man a fish. We all know the answer to that. So the deepening of that level of dependency is not so much even a sense of the weakness of the people. It is more a sense of the weakness of the government. The fact that they have no money. A friend of mine went to the landfill this morning, Lennox. When he got to the landfill, you know, the scale is not working in the landfill. So they could not even calculate the correct charge of garbage that this person was bringing into the landfill. A few weeks ago at the General Hospital, they ran out of the special containers, bags, with the fluid in them to preserve the blood samples that are used for capturing and exporting blood samples for determining if somebody has Zika. They had none.
Listen to another one that just came in. Due to the maintenance of the extra machines, we are unable to accommodate private or OPD clinic patients until further. So
there we go, Matt. I mean, let us
extra machines.
People have to, I think, try to get it into their heads. This is not just signaling the collapse of the society. It's really the collapse of those who we gave charge and responsibility to govern and manage this society.
You think we're showing signs of something like Venezuela?
The court. Well, we come into Venezuela in a second. Manchester United just did what? They fired who? The team was not doing well. They fired somebody and brought in a new. Even in sports, that's what people do. So it seems to me, Matt, you know, the coach may not have wanted to go, but somebody, and the question is, who is that somebody in the case of state structures? That somebody, as Blessings keeps reminding us, is we ourselves, you know, the man and woman in the mirror. And it, you know, and when a state group, a leadership group, has to resort to these kinds of, if you will, very blatant, you know, attempts at casting blame on the rest of the society for its own failings, that is a definite sign that they have run out of ideas. It is time for them, if they have any honor, dignity left in them, they would step down. They would hurry up and call Parliament and tender their resignation.
Afi, quickly, because we don't have time, I just saw a news item out of St. Vincent. The Prime Minister there is offering Vincentians studying in Venezuela a one-way ticket home to St. Vincent.
I've been in touch, Matt, with some families here who have children, Dominican families.
Yes.
And they had to struggle. They had to struggle against our officials in Dominica to get them to agree to remove those people, our people, out of Venezuela and try to get them out because our officials.
So we expect a few soon?
We can expect a few, but over the objection of public officials here who are trying to argue, there's no risk, the children are not at risk, etc., etc. All because they don't want to, quote unquote, be part of creating the impression of reality as it is existing.
So our students are different than that of St. Vincent?
It appears so. It appears we are quite willing to place the children of the state at risk, and that is the child sexual abuse message. When you have a government that is willing to place the children of the country, not the state written with a capital S, the children of the country at risk, and to stand up and celebrate somebody who's been charged by the officials of the state with molestation of children, and you're celebrating that man as a hero, as a 10-foot tall person, that has to be the final straw. That is why Mr. Skerritt is no fool. You would make a great mistake if you think Roosevelt Skerritt is a fool. He understands that he has come to the end of his rope. He is simply waiting for the official announcement.
Gentlemen, it was a pleasure. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Matt.
Thank you. God bless you.